Hello, welcome to Perfectly Twisted. I'm Nicole Eggert, and that over there is Dave Palais.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. You kind of hurt me a little bit ago when you said I look orange, and now I can't stop looking at myself, and I'm very disappointed.
Well, okay. First of all, Dave said to me, Nicole, do you have your light on? You look really dark. And I'm looking at myself in my monitor, and I'm like, I look same as I do every week. And I said, and I looked at him, and he had a warmer light on, and warm is the term I should have used, but I said, well, you look more
Yeah,
orange.
yeah. You
And
fired right back at me. It was like, yeah. Do not say anything negative. You're that person. That one, like, oh yeah, watch this. That
I
hurt.
didn't mean it like that. I just meant I had like cold light and you had warm light, and Dave got all but hurt that I
I
called him
did.
orange.
I
Yeah,
did.
I
I did.
didn't mean it like that at
Yeah.
all. Um, did you happen to watch Next Gen NYC last night on Bravo, the new show?
Oh no, I missed it. I watched The Valley. I didn't know. I didn't record it. I didn't realize it was starting already.
Yeah,
Damn.
it
Okay, I'll
premiered.
go back and find it. What did
It
you
pre-
you can spoiler alert it for me. I wanna know what you think.
well, the kids are a bit young for me, but it's interesting to see because they're all most of them are children of reality stars on Bravo. Um, But there's this one girl on there. The reason I bring it up is there's one girl who's like a club promoter who grew up in New York. She's not a child of, and but she doesn't wash her hands. She's like a big germ person. Like she believes in like germs, and she's
Well,
freaking
well, hold on.
everybody else
Explain this
out.
to me. I mean, she believes in getting exposed to as many germs as
Yes,
possible?
yes.
Wow.
Which
That's the
I
opposite of me.
Right. And so that's why I'm bringing it up because I'm a big believer in being exposed to germs, and I have the same theory as her, is that that's why we don't get sick and that's why we don't have allergies in my home. Um, I don't think that that's a coincidence. And most people who are that way, she's more extreme than, than I am, but it's sort of it's a thing. But she touches the bottom of someone's shoe who has just walked indoors from outside in New York. She touches the bottom of the shoe, but then she has her hand on her face, and it continues to go on. And then the girls make a bathroom run, and she uses the restroom and doesn't wash her hands. And
Oh
one of
my
the
god.
girls says, like, I would hold your hand, but you didn't wash it. And she gets a little offended, and it's funny. So I knew I was going to ask your opinion on it because I knew that you
I'm a germ freak.
right.
I even travel with Clorox wipes. Like, when
Uh,
I'm in New York, whenever I come back, before I walk into my hotel, I'll clean the bottom of my shoes with Clorox wipes. When I come home, by the way, before I walk into my house, I'll clean my shoes with Clorox wipes. I will not
what?
bring dirty shoes into my house.
Why did I just take them off?
I do take them off in the garage, and then I clean them, and then I'll put them back in my closet. I will not walk on my floor inside my house with dirty shoes. Now, when other people come to my home, I don't make you do that. But I do have a little bit of anxiety when you walk through my carpet
Yeah,
and then sit on
and
my
then you
couch
mop,
and want to talk.
you, like,
Yeah.
pull out the Swiffer when everybody leaves, you're, like,
Oh, I freak
immediately
out a
mopping the
little bit.
floor.
Inside,
Oh,
I die a little bit every time I see someone walk across my carpet with their shoes on. Yeah.
holy silly. Oh my god, that's so time consuming. So after you wash your shoes, then you have to go wash your hands.
Yes, I do. I
Oh, that's
do.
wild. Yeah.
I know.
No, I do wash my hands after I use the restroom.
I'm glad to
Um,
hear that. You could work in
I
a
think
restaurant.
I think the pandemic sort of, like, it made me question, like, pre-pandemic, like, how wait a minute, because it brought washing your hands to, the surface,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I was wearing the Apple Watch at the time, and it had that app on it, like, where it timed you, which I ended up turning off. I was like, "Knock it off." I know I have to wash my hands, but it made me think, like, "Huh, I don't think I washed my hands that much before the pandemic." But, yeah. So I knew that that would totally freak you out and gross you out.
It did.
Yeah. But she claims to not ever get sick and not have allergies too, and, I don't know. I do think that there's something to that. Which brings me to our guest today. John sent me a link. He's like, you've gotta watch her. She makes videos and you guys talk about the same stuff." And, so I watched, and of course I was immediately sucked in. So let me just introduce her first, and then we can get to talking about all the stuff. So it's Deanna O'Connell, And hi.
Hi.
And
Good morning.
good morning. The first thing I watched was a two-part video, two videos she has out where she breaks down the FDA. And I always knew it was like corrupt, and I always knew you can't trust it. And whenever a doctor would say to me, "Well, it's FDA approved," I was always like, "Okay, we're done here. I can't have any more conversations. We're done." And I know that it's not a doctor I can trust, and we're just gonna take care of business here, and the rest of it I'll save. Because you can't. I've realized too, you can't go around and like educating people because people have to want to learn this stuff, or it just falls on deaf ears, right? I mean, I can't waste. I have to put my energy towards just fixing my own household, one household at a time. Right. So tell Dave a little bit. Dave, do you know anything about FDA? And
Yeah, I thought I did.
okay,
I'm kind of curious. Probably not as much as our guest, but yeah, I thought I did.
Well, yeah, and I'm definitely not an expert, but if you go down the rabbit hole of they call it the revolving door, it's essentially just people going in the FDA, out of the FDA, but into big pharma, into big food, back like to the USDA. So essentially they create policy and put policy in place when they're in the FDA or USDA, and then they go back to the food companies and reap the benefits of the policies. So it's it's been going on for years and years and years since 60s and 70s. So so just go to ChatGPT and say, tell me about the revolving door with FDA and the USDA. So it's very interesting. And then if you look at like, you think should be illegal that you can work for like a company like Monsanto, who makes the biggest seeds, like the biggest seed company, and they make seeds for all of the farmers, but then they go back to the USDA and then they dictate the policy for how that's going to be used within the industry. So it's very interesting.
and also what you brought up, what I thought was so interesting too, is because so many Americans, they just really trust that the FDA and the USDA and everything has our best interests at heart. They really do. And they're like, it's approved and it's in the market, it's safe. And, foods that we eat here, I think most people do know that other countries don't eat like we do. Even the same companies send their product to other countries and it does not have the same ingredient list. It's completely different. And Deanna was talking about how it's because Americans just don't say anything. Nobody
Right.
brings it up.
Right. People don't bring it up. And yeah. And so so I do work in the food industry. And so what I'll hear from the big restaurant chains and the big groups is that, they have to be, GMO free in certain countries. They have to be cage free in certain countries. They have to be, whatever it is, what type of certifications that they need. It's because that population of people put it into practice, put it into law, and they demanded it. And as Americans, we don't demand that our, eggs are cage free, or that our meats are organic, or that we're sulfate free, or, there's nitrate free. There's so many different, but Americans are not demanding it. And, companies just aren't going to do it. I think we're seeing a little bit of movement now with the colors, the artificial colors that they're trying to ban. And I think all of us are on board with that. But until we have a uniform across the board, and ban that stuff. I mean, I think I don't know how many are banned in Europe, but it's over 10,000 ingredients that are banned in Europe and they're allowed here. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me, why they see it and they want to be healthy. Even Russia, they are not allowed to have GMOs in any of their food in Russia. Like, there's so many countries that they don't allow it because they know that it's going to drive up. But here it's like, keep us sick. And big pharma, well, food makes us sick and big pharma is going to heal us. And it's just a very vicious cycle, and it just lines the pockets while keeping us sick, period. I know, and you sound like a conspiracy theorist when you say that, right, Nicole? And you're right. You have to worry about your own home. And when you do talk about this with other people, it's like, it's like looking like, oh, I don't trust things. And I don't know if I should trust that. But you really do need to educate yourself. And I come from the mindset of don't trust anything and try to learn about everything.
It's true. And so like, okay, take goldfish. You also talk about this in one of your videos, and everybody buys goldfish for their kids. And so
or hands them out at Halloween.
Yeah, and like as the healthier, excuse me, as a healthier option, right?
Right.
When it's sprayed with Roundup, it has a Roundup in it, and the thing is that everybody says, "Oh, it's trace amounts," and it got cleared by the FDA. Well, yeah, because one little goldfish has trace amounts in it, but when your kids are eating handfuls of them a couple days a week, it becomes more than just trace amounts. This becomes, and then America throws their arms up and their hands up in the air and says, like, "Why do we all have cancer?"
Right.
Um, right? And yet you're feeding it to your kid, easy peasy, buy that crap. And and like wheat, anything with wheat in it, it's like wheat in any other country is such a healthy option. In America, it's poison. It's
Absolutely. And then
absolutely
it's
poison.
marketed, goldfish are marketed to kids. And like, oh, when my kids were little, my kids are teenagers now and a preteen. But when we would go into preschool and they're handing these out for snacks, and these kids are all, I mean, think about their little bodies that are regenerating cells every day. And so do I want my kids to have those cells, in their bodies when they're regenerating? It's like, no, I don't want it. And it's just, it drives me crazy that people will hand this stuff out for Halloween, and that Goldfish, the company, they're marketing that to, if you could look at Goldfish, there's a ton of different brands, and like they got Dora the Explorer and they have Bob the Builder, they have so many different, I don't know if those are actual, but you know what I mean? They have so many that the kids are like, I want that. I want that. I want that. And then there are better options, but they cost more. And, I went down this path, and I know you wanted to get into talking about kind of how I got on this path, but my family used to say, oh, it's so expensive. How can you, my extended family, how can you afford it? How can you afford organic food and GMO free food? And I'm like, I'm either going to pay now or I'm going to pay later, and so what do I want to put into my body? And so once you eliminate a lot of those, it's impossible to do it all together. But once you eliminate that and you see the difference in how you feel and inflammation, that's where, it's like, okay, this makes sense. I understand this now.
Yeah, and it's really important because it's a preventative lifestyle. Like you shouldn't have to wait like me until you get sick and you get a diagnosis and then start realizing, okay, I don't want this to come back. How do I combat this? And I was healthy before, but nothing like I was not aware of all the things, that I've been diving into. And you yourself had you have autoimmune
Mhm. Yeah.
symptoms, right? Mhm.
Yeah, I do. And, so that all, I think my smoking gun were breast implants. And, I kudos to all the women whose bodies accept them and they can have them, because I miss mine every day. But I got breast implants in 2005. So 20 years ago. And I was like 28, 29. Actually I would have been 25 because I'm 50 now. So, no, that would have been almost 30. So 2005, I got saline implants, and right off the bat, they looked like little balloons on me. And it's like, they just looked like fake, like you could tell they were fake. They weren't comfortable. Sleeping, I felt like I was laying on, balloons. And so I didn't love them, but, I would work and I would, make phone calls. And there were times where I would start getting these crazy, I thought they were canker sores. I would get crazy ulcers in my mouth. And I would call into work and say, I can't come into work today because I can't talk. And they're like, why? You have a canker sore? Like, they'd look at me like I was crazy. And so I didn't put all this together until years later. But 2008, I actually swapped out the saline and I got the gummy bear silicone implants. And then in 2009, I was pregnant with my oldest. And that's when I started, and there's a lot of TMI here, Dave, so hopefully it's okay for you and your listeners, but I started getting really bad genital ulcers. And so I went to my OB. I was like, what's going on? And she was like, oh, it must have been dormant herpes. She's giving me Valtrex, and I'm taking Valtrex while I'm pregnant by the handful.
Oh.
And nothing is making anything better. And so she doesn't test it. She doesn't swab it. She doesn't do anything. She doesn't Google it. And so I just suffered. I mean, it was insufferable. I sat in sitz baths trying to heal like these things for, my whole pregnancy. So fast forward, it's just kept getting worse. That it was the mouth sores, genital ulcers. And then I started, it would be on my head, on my skin. I would just have these like sores. And so fast forward to when I got pregnant in 2012, same thing. And after he was born, I used to read a lot, on my Kindle, and, nurse while I would read while I was nursing. And 2 weeks into having him, all my eyes went like super wonky. Everything was blurry. I couldn't see. So emergency ophthalmology appointment. They're like, oh, well, you just gave birth. So you must have like pushed and, popped, like, done something, hurt your retinas or something. And I was like, no, I had a scheduled C-section because my doctor was worried that I'm going to pass this disease along to my child. So kind of a, 2 C-sections because of this. Later found out that it's called Behçet's disease. So it affects your retinas, and it creates retinitis and uveitis. You get mouth sores and then skin lesions. So, and I had the 4 markers for it, just straight across the board. And it's interesting because it used to be called the Silk Road disease, which would go down like the silk trading roads in like India, Thailand, so usually it was people that don't look like me, that have olive skin, dark hair, dark eyes. And so now they're just seeing it more and more and more. And it's funny because since I've been diagnosed, I've helped a number of people be diagnosed. I had a friend whose daughter started having these lesions, and she wasn't sexually active. She's like, what's going on? She's lying to me. I think she has an STD. And so, so it's a very, very rare disease. But and fast forward to 2019. So I've been on Humira since I gave birth to my youngest. And that's helped. That helps, like, calm my symptoms and keeps everything quiet. But in 2019, I decided I was just sick. I was just always sick. I couldn't talk. It was just painful. And so I had my implants removed and did the full, when I explanted, they take the membrane around your implant to make sure that anything that was touching silicone comes out. And I immediately lost 10 pounds. So, and I think the implants were like probably 3 pounds of that, but I immediately lost 10 pounds of inflammation. So that was just straight. It was like within a week that I just dropped this weight. So I was like, wow, I've been carrying around, all of this inflammation weight, and I felt better. My autoimmune just started like coming, like it was almost cured. And so now it just flares up if I'm eating wheat, if I'm doing the stuff that, inflammation, if I'm eating foods that cause inflammation, then, I'll see that I'll have, some kind of symptoms, but it almost eliminated it. And what's interesting is that I have 2 cousins on my mom's side. So 2 maternal cousins, they also went down this path and had implants, had health issues, had them removed. So I think just some people, their bodies just reject implants. Some don't. Again, I feel like they're the lucky ones. But yeah, so it's very interesting. And I never would have put it together. And it's like, was I predisposed to Behçet's disease previously? I don't know. And then did implants kick it off? I don't know. But the timing of it all, that it was almost immediate. And I didn't figure it out, quite literally until years later that I put it all together. And once I had them removed, and it was a really hard decision too, because I loved them. I'm a muscular person. So I felt like, it kind of filled me out. It made me look a little more symmetrical. And it was a really, really tough decision. I was like, God, what if I do this? And a third surgery that I'm paying, $7,000, $8,000 for, and it doesn't fix it. But I'm very grateful that that was definitely a smoking gun for me.
I hear a lot about implant illness, that it affects a lot of people. I happen to I don't feel like it affected me, but here I am, like, I don't know. And having my mastectomies, um, of course, they want to put implants back in. If I want any kind of, boobs at all, we're talking implants. And it hurts my brain. I'm trying to wrap my brain around it, where I have to make this decision. And, plastic surgeons will say to you, but the FDA has cleared the implants.
They're safe. Yeah,
They're
safe. They're
the most studied thing, like, in the FDA. They've been studied for so many years because it's such a moneymaker and so many people want them, that they're, my plastic surgeons, like, they have been studied more than anything else. And, they are safe. And you're like, right. I'm going to put
That's
silicone
exactly,
in
they
my
didn't,
body.
mine didn't think that it was the smoking gun whatsoever until my body proved otherwise. And, there was a good documentary called Explant that studies all of these women and like how they used to do implants and what they used to make them out of is insane. And so they've come a long way, but it just talks about all of these women that have explanted and, healed. And even my doctor that removed them, all she does, her name is Dr. Musat out of Chicago. She's amazing. That's all she does now is explants. And she's doing like 4 or 5 every other day. And she was like, I won't put implants in anymore. This is all I see. And so I'm like, so you have the data of how, the healing afterwards. And I'm like, why don't you study this? Why don't you, publish, studies of the, and so she's, I should do that, but she's just, her moneymaker now is explant. And so it's just crazy how many women are healed after the fact. It's crazy.
It really is. And you're right, they've come a long way, but it's still silicone going into your body. And so,
Well,
yeah,
it's a medical device, right? Just like some people will have inflammation after getting their knee replaced because they have a fake knee, so it's the same thing. You don't know what your body's like. There's something foreign. And should I put up my defense and fight this? And so what stinks about an autoimmune is that, they say, keep your immune system healthy, keep your immune. So do everything to boost your immune system. But when I do that, I'm boosting my disease essentially. So what Humira does is, I used to explain it to my kids that I have a bubble, right? So our immune system is our bubble and that protects us, but my bubble makes me sick. So Humira, takes my bubble away. So then I'm more prone to things. So that is, when my ophthalmologist, so I have to have an eye workup every 3 months, a full dilation, all of that, because it's, I could go blind and that's the worst part of it is that, not having, 100% vision all the time. I have a lot of floaters and things like that. But she is the one who's first started recommending, well, think about organic food, think about GMO-free food, think about anything that's going to cause inflammation. So that was the path. That was how I started on that path. And my husband, who he's a true Huberman husband. I feel like he's always like, you were sick like the first 15 years that we were together. It's like, you were sick and now you're alive and, you're active and you can do things. And I love it. And we could be more, we could do everything with the kids, but he is on this, we just finished a parasite cleanse. He wants to do a heavy metal cleanse. When I got my implants on, I went to a functional doctor and I did a full workup to find out what was in my system. And so, I learned all about, parasite cleanses, charcoal cleanses, things like that. But that's really what set me down the path of if I can't have a strong immune system because of Humira and I don't have a bubble, then what else can I do to protect myself? And so that was it. That's been the rabbit hole that I've been going down for, all of those years. So I really, really try to research everything and working in the food industry too. I remember I was talking to an R&D food technologist or a scientist, and they were working on the Lunchable brand, which funny in-house, they call that the Junkable brand. And so I said, well, who's studying like the long-term effects of these like nitrates or sulfates or things that are in the meats, the lunch meats and that? They're like, not us. Like, we don't do that. I'm like, well, who's doing that? Like, it was so mind-boggling to understand that the food companies are not responsible for that's what the USDA and the FDA, that's what their job is, to study the long-term effects on some of these things. And, trace amounts of this and trace amounts of that are okay. But when I heard that, like, wow, like, so there are people that are making our food and they're like, their job is to make it taste as good as possible and for, as cheap as possible. And when you really understand that, we're like, they are not there to protect us. Our food companies are not here to, feed the world. They're here to make a profit. Right. And I get it. Right. I'm a capitalist. They're here to make a profit and they're here to sell as many products as they can to as many people as they can. But they are not here to give us the best unless you are with, it is a better for you type of organization that's their mission, right? Sustainable, organic, things like that. So that's how I started going down the path of just read everything, understand everything, and I hate to say don't trust the industry, but really don't trust the industry. And you're right. As soon as someone says, oh, it's FDA approved or it's not FDA approved, then I really do. I'm the same way. I stop listening.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you talk about the revolving door of, the food companies then becoming the head of FDA and then back into big pharma, and they all protect themselves and keep it so that, let's use Lunchables, which are just poison in a box, poison in a little poison box.
Right.
They make the laws so that they can make it junky and cheap and sell it, and then pharma's happy because now we all have cancer and we all have autoimmune and we're all sick and we're all going to the doctor and using big pharma for band-aids to not fix the problem, to add to the problem, and just help our side effects, ease our side effects of our problems. And nobody realizes that you have to get to the core problem. Right? Like chemotherapy does not cure cancer, right? It stops the symptoms, but the main root of why you got it. And if you don't fix that, that's why it always, it comes back, is because you're not fixing the root of like how it got there in the first place.
Exactly.
And like with your autoimmune, I think that that's so wild that you were going through all of that and no doctors really.
Oh yeah, so it wasn't until I went to a functional doctor, and that is where, when they look at you as a whole, that is what they do, is look at, like, because if you treat a symptom, if I say, I have a skin lesion, okay, well, we're going to treat that. Well, no, like what else is being, what else is causing this? And so going to a functional doctor for me was a game changer. So I got to see what my body was deficient in. I did, some workups in terms of like what I'm like intolerant to for food. And I found like, some like dairy, I'm intolerant to some dairy, not like they're not huge markers, but like eggplant and some egg, like just weird things that I felt like I was eating a clean diet. And I felt like all of these things were, in a clean diet. So I love that a functional doctor will look at you as like, tell me everything, right? And so they're not going to just treat the symptom. And we all know that if you treat one thing with a medicine, you're usually going to break 2 or 3 other things, and so it's just this bad, this cycle of, a doctor that just treats one thing. And I would rather pay out of pocket for functional medicine and, have somebody who's going to look at things from, from the top down and the big picture than just like, okay, what are your symptoms and how can I fix you? That's just what our doctors are trained to do. You had that Dr. Jen on your podcast who got everything she was talking about like candles and just all the things that are poison in our houses. And I'm like, oh my God, she is like, I mean, that she is just like, I feel like exactly how you and I, live our life. But what she talked about is that she wasn't trained and they had no nutritional, like they don't have any nutritional education when they go through med school. Like there's nothing about nutrition and how nutrition rolls into everything. And so now I think we know a lot, 2025, that, food can kill you and food can heal you. And it's just, and food isn't the only area. It's what are we putting on our body? What are we cleaning our houses with? What are we sleeping on? All of that stuff. But I just think doctors just don't look at that and they're just like, it's fine. It's safe. It's FDA approved. And that's what they were trained. And it's all they know.
To me, one of the biggest issues is it's a lot more expensive to eat healthy, right? To put good things in your body, it costs a lot of money. And, I realized this the very first week I went to college. I was on my own. I got to go grocery shopping on my own. And I bought food for a week. And it cost me around $57. And I bought all the junk I wasn't supposed to eat, like everything. I'm eating ding dongs. I'm eating all the crap that can't eat, but nobody's watching. So I'm like, this is going to be great. Number one, I felt terrible. Okay. But 2, it was really inexpensive. And then the next week I said, I got to start eating like a human being. And that $57 that I paid the week before turned into basically $159. And it was a lot more expensive to eat healthier. And I wasn't eating crazy healthy, just enough to survive as a human being that felt normal. But my point is there's so many people who, obviously don't have the financial means to eat healthy on a regular basis and feed their kids healthy on a regular basis. And, you go into, I'm not going to name stores because I don't want to get sued, but, we all know which stores there are where there's not a diet, even choice of a soda. And it's just constant sugars and just so many things that are bad for you, but it's inexpensive to feed your family that way, these processed foods. and they make it so tough for you to keep your family healthy.
Yeah, it's easier to make a big box of macaroni and cheese, right,
Yeah.
than to create. But also you have to do smart shopping. So like organic is a thing that I say to my children, I say, you are either eating something really healthy or you're poisoning yourself. So don't buy a box of blueberries and strawberries and think that you're doing something good for your body if it's not organic, because you're actually poisoning yourself. You are eating Roundup. You are eating poison, and certain stores will have the same deal. Like I love Sprouts. They have buy one get one free of packs of organic strawberries. That's a deal. And you just have to kind of do your research. You have to really care, and you have to find those stores that do price comparably, and it just takes a little bit of research. It's really not that much more expensive. I mean, if you it's really not once you get into it. Maybe a little bit, but it's like, what are you going to pay a couple extra dollars so that you're not eating poison? I mean, I think it's health is wealth, right? Like you have to invest in yourself.
Right. Yeah, it's cheaper to go get a Happy Meal than it is to
But
make an
it's not
organic
really
or,
anymore.
food for your family. But yeah, going to McDonald's, I feel like even now it's like, we ate at Chipotle like a family of 4. It was like $70. I was like, how is this? How is this? How is this? Like, this is insane. So it's expensive across the board. And if you just use, I'm sure you've used the Yuka app or Yuck, I don't know which way it's pronounced, but the Yucca app is really good to tell you what to watch out for. Sometimes it does have like, oh, this is high in fat. I'm okay with high in fat if it doesn't have the sugar, if it doesn't have, the other additives that are in those things. But if you're researching, the biggest thing I think what it does is that it tells you what's in it, and you can click on it and it'll tell you like what is the ingredient that it doesn't like. So, that's the important part, is understanding is like, what is it filled with? So that's a really good option. And then, I use the seed oil scout. I don't know if you're familiar with that app, but, seed oils, I did a big video on TikTok about seed oils, but there was a couple of really huge studies that came out in December that links seed oils to cancer. And this is why seed oils are one of the biggest causes of colon cancer now. And they did a huge study on people. I don't know how big the study was, but they did a study on people with colon cancer. And so when you have seed oils and you ingest seed oils, it turns into bioactive lipids or bioactive lipids, I want to say. And all of these people that had colon cancer have all of these lipids in their systems. And so they took them off seed oils. And what those bioactive lipids do is it prevents your body from fighting cancer, and it creates more inflammation. So basically, if we all have cancer cells in us, so our body's not able to fight those cancer cells. So every time you go, like I think about my kids love going to hibachi. Like they love hibachi, but what do they spray all over the, grill? It's like all vegetable oil, right? And then they're doing it on high heat. That's a carcinogen. We're now consuming all of that. So, they understand that. But if you look at Seed Oil Scout, it'll tell you restaurants that are seed oil, like, they're friendly to, like they'll cook with butter every time. Like I ask for a steak. I'm like, can you cook it in butter? Can you not cook it on anything else? So that's a really good option. But when they took people off of seed oils, those bioactive lipids disappeared and those tumors started shrinking. So that's how I try to explain. I know, Nicole, with like kids, it's so hard for us to get our kids to understand. Mine are 12 and 15, and they get it, but they don't get it, right? So when they go to their friends' houses, they're coming back and they have Dr. Pepper and Coca-Cola, they have all the stuff. And it's, I know that it's like, oh, that, they become kind of like Day, like you went in there, you went crazy because it's like no one's watching. So they are like that as well. They go by how come we never go to that grocery store? How come we never go to that grocery store? I'm like, because it's just poison in there. We're not going to shop. And I mean, I have not stepped foot in a traditional grocery store in years, and they get that. But so, so it's very hard with kids, and, they feel like they're losing out on things. I remember when my son wanted to take Pringles. He wanted the Pringles, he wanted the can that he wanted to take for some event that he had. And so I bought like the brand from Whole Foods that, doesn't have it. It's cooked with avocado oil. And he's like, oh, it's an off brand. It's an off brand. It's crap. It's garbage. So, it's so funny. I'm like, this costs twice as much as the other one. And, trying to explain that to him, that it's not the off brand, it's the better for you brand. But sometimes they just don't see that. So they do see now, though, when I educate them on, our bodies regenerating and, where cancer comes from and things like that, they do. I feel like they grasp it now and they understand it. But I also say it's your body. If you want to eat it, you can eat it. But the fact that there is, they say like 80% of people on like colon cancer will be 80% of people under 30 in like 10 years. Like it's just insane. Colon cancer was something that when we grew up, nobody had colon cancer. It was like maybe a very small population, but now it's everywhere. And we used to cook with beef tallow. We used to cook with that in McDonald's. They, when the American Heart Association started saying we need to be heart healthy and let's, start going to all these alternatives, that's when all the beef tallows and all the high fat and good fat, that's when they stopped using that. And that's when they said, let's use the vegetable oil, let's cook with canola oil. And now restaurants are starting to see that. But again, we have to be the ones that say, what are you cooking with? Can you stop using this? And Seed Oil Scout has an option where you can, so say we're going to a restaurant and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going with my friends this weekend. What are the options that are not made with seed oils? And it formulates an email for you, and you can text it to them or email it to them, and then they respond. So if we're all collectively telling restaurants to stop using this stuff, maybe they will stop using it. If we're, signing the petitions and being a little loud and, trying to get the word out, I think that will help. But I had a call. I talked to the CEO of one of the largest restaurant chains in the world, and they had just had a huge food recall for a certain product that was in their bread. And I said they were going to work with us to help them hire a head of global food safety. And I said, so are we trying to basically uniform your food safety across the board worldwide? And she said, God, no. Why would I do that? I need to be GMO free here and cage free eggs here. And, and she goes, until Americans get on their little soapboxes and tell me what they want, they're going to get the same thing that I'm, giving to Zimbabwe, I think is what she used. But I just was floored. And I was like, I couldn't believe that she just basically said, no, I'm not going to give Americans like the good stuff. If I don't have to, I'm not going to give it, but I have to do that in Greenland. And I have to do that, in Iceland. I have to do that in other countries. I'm not doing that here yet. So heard that with my own ears from a CEO of one of the biggest restaurant chains in the world.
That's heartbreaking.
It is. It is. And that's another, drives the point, so I love being kind of on the inside to understand who's doing what and who is, cares about the American consumer and our health as a greater good over profits.
Yeah. Excuse me. I don't know what's going on with me. I lost 2 friends this year to colon cancer, two
Wow.
women in my life. And it's very real. It's huge. It's everywhere. And people don't really understand it. And like a French fry is the most unhealthy thing you can eat in your life. And not just because it's a potato deep fried in oil. It is actually a poison. And people are not understanding about the seed oils. I think you're hearing a lot more about it. Thank you, social media. And my daughter, my 13-year-old, comes to me and she'll educate me on the seed oils too. And she looks for it on the labels. She never wants to go through what I went through. So she's very much on board of.
Well, if you see it, yeah. And that's just it. The kids have to see it to understand it. And unless it's not, front and center and they see it, they had 2 other, so my father-in-law passed away from, he had, esophageal cancer, and he smoked cigars all the time. So all they remember is grandpa like sitting outside in Florida in his lanai with his, cigars, and he died of cancer. So they're like, we're not going to smoke, but that's not just it. He actually, and they started giving him when he couldn't swallow, and it was like burning. It was just like, he was like fire for him to swallow anything. They gave him a feeding tube, and it was like Ensure. And I'm like, oh my God, how are you giving him this garbage? And this is supposed to heal him, so that's what he saw. And then my stepfather passed away. He had a stroke, and, he ate terribly, and, he was basically, I don't want to say a vegetable, but he was in a bed for a good 12 years, and he couldn't talk, and he couldn't, he couldn't move. And they saw that, and that's all they remember of him, which is really sad because he was a pretty active guy. But, he ate, he drank, he smoked, and, that was his whole life. And so they didn't see that. So unless they truly see the lifestyle, it's like my brother passed away in a motorcycle accident, and he wasn't wearing a helmet. My kids will always wear a helmet because they know that story, right? And they hear it and hear it. So it's, how can we better educate our kids to let them really see what this is going to do? And the sad part is a lot of them won't, unless they're affected by it, from a family member or themselves. But it's very, very hard for them to see the big picture, and for them not to do what Dave did. It's like, no one's watching, so I'm just going to eat this, and I'm going to do this, But and we use Zevia, so it doesn't have caramel coloring, and it doesn't have sugar, and that's like the soda, Dave. I'll say soda, not pop, but that's like the pop that we have in our fridge. And so now I see all the kids coming over. Can I get a Zevia? Can I get a Zevia? Can I get a Zevia? And it's just like, even like, it's not that more expensive, but it doesn't have the caramel coloring, which is a carcinogen, and it doesn't have the sugar. It's like, why put that in your body if you don't, have to have it? So there's options out there. But yeah, to your point, your daughter saw it, and now she's like, I get it.
Yeah, she gets it. And the thing is like, I'll go through the house because things accumulate, and you have to keep continually going through your house and like getting rid of things, right? And I was on one of those again, and I was cleaning everything out. And I said to her, and I threw so many of her products away, and she was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I said, "But the good news is you get to go buy off of this list. You get to buy all new stuff." And I said to her, it's not that we have to. I'm going to be so strict and you can't. I said, but if we can cut down somewhere between 50 and 90%, if we can cut down, like if we can aim for that, do you know like what good we're doing for our bodies? And
Right.
and when I put it to her like that, she, very much is on board and very much checks the labels now. And it's and luckily a lot of companies are, catering to this kind of lifestyle. But it's funny because you brought up Ensure, because when I go get chemo, what do you think they give everybody?
They
What
want
do
to
you
give
think
you
they pass out?
Ensure.
Yeah, it's all sitting there free for the taking, and they pass it around, and I'm like, God, no. Like, fuck no. Get it away from me. And just like I went to my dermatologist, and I had something suspicious, and I had to have it cut out. So I had a couple trips there, but I had my body scan. And before I left, they gave me like CeraVe and another brand that has crap in it, sunblock, but it has and I was like, you can keep that. Like, no, thank you. And
Right.
it's just like it's here you are treating me, and then you hand me more poison to put on my body. I can't. It's like banging your head against the wall. It's
Well, and
wild.
it's also, when your kids are at the pool and you see like the terrible sunscreens that people are putting on themselves. We use a beef tallow with zinc, and which sounds crazy, right? I'm putting beef tallow and zinc, but that's all it really is. But you see the sunscreens that they're putting on them, and then it's like, like the birthday parties. It's like the Costco cakes, like, oh my God, the birthday cakes, that you look at the ingredients and it's like, it's a cake. How is there 150 ingredients in this cake? And so if you put it outside, I'm curious how long that would last, but my kids both of my kids have, like my whole family pretty much has ADHD. So we've been, on the artificial color, like, kick those. So they know about the yellows and the reds and the blues. And like, they love the Gatorades, and, it's just like, oh, but it's zero sugar. I'm like, it still has the blues and the, it's like, you're going to be bouncing off the walls regardless. But your kids don't understand because everyone else has it. And I used to hate going to birthday parties, and I'm like, I don't really want my kid to have the cupcake and and like, you don't want to be the food Nazi. You don't want to be the one that says like, oh, like, no, maybe go for the different option. It's like, then you're not invited to the party anymore. And I felt like that was the the reputation I had, but we used to be in Chicago. But that was the reputation of like, oh, Deanna's kids are going to be here, so we better, clean it up. But most people just don't. They just trust everything because they just don't know any better, and they haven't luckily had any issues, so they just don't need to know.
Yeah, with the sunblock, it's funny because, kids are starting to hear about what it's doing to the reef and to the animals, in the sea. So it's if it's doing that to the nature, what is it doing to your body when you're
What's it
putting it
doing to your
on?
body?
Yeah,
Right.
so it's luckily the younger generations I think care about the earth more, luckily. So these things do come to light. I'm actually creating and formulating a sunblock as we
Really?
speak. Yeah. And so it's fantastic because I am like, why is this just not out there? Like this should be everywhere.
Right.
And it's just it's really not. There are some companies that are doing some great things, but then the packaging isn't great, or like I can't find the whole product that I like out there, so I'm making it.
Well, there's a correlation with seed oils and sunburn. So, people that don't have, like, you can be out in the sun if you don't have seed oils in your system. They say you won't get sunburned as much. So there's a couple of doctors out there that believe that are, the TikTok doctors. So that is very interesting too, that it's also creating something in our bodies that is, giving us more of that sunburn. But my husband is I would rather get wrinkles and I would rather, be out in the sun without sunblock than put the sunblock on. And he's really tries to, he's very, he eats as clean as he's a Huberman husband, I call him, but he definitely believes that there is a, correlation to seed oils and sunburn. So I think that's another factor too, that a lot of people don't realize.
What can I ask you? What is the mindset? I mean, just my opinion. I've lived in the South for a number of years, but I've also lived in California most of my life. And the mindset, as far as being healthy or doing the changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, is that still considered a California thing? I know you're obviously spent time in the Midwest. The reason I asked this question, I remember, and I'm going to the Midwest this week, is going in a restaurant ordering a Diet Coke. And literally the waitress says, "What are you into health food?" Like, was so offended I ordered a Diet Coke. Like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, "That's health food." I was ordering a diet soda. But I
Wow.
was and at the same time, I was like, is it just a California thing? And people outside of California think you're nuts anyway. But is it growing? The mindset, is it changing across the country?
Gosh, that's a good question. But when we lived in the city of Chicago, so I feel like it's also a little more progressive, right? Living in the city
Yeah.
versus living out in the suburbs or living out in country, and whatnot. But we spent a lot of time in Southwest Michigan. We had a lake house there for 15 years. And when we would go there, we could see a huge difference in the menu and what people would order because it was kind of out in the middle of nowhere versus the city. So I did see a big difference, but I have always maybe aligned myself with, people that have more of a healthier lifestyle. And now that we're in Colorado, it's like our friends, we're mountain bikers, we're hikers, we're definitely, if we go to a restaurant together, it's like we're all on board for, no seed oils. We're getting, we don't want to drink the tap water because who knows what it's got to be filtered water or maybe sparkling or something. But I would hope that more people are seeing seeing the light, but that's a very good question. But I don't know that it's as, advanced, we'll say, as California or a bigger city like Chicago, across the country. And I'm from Ohio. So going home when I go back to Cleveland, I see the same thing where it's not the healthiest. And, the stuff even my mom makes for dinner, I'm like, Mom, everything's like, chicken fried steak and
Right.
pierogies. And, like she's like, what's wrong
Not
with
gonna lie.
that?
Right.
It's like, so that's just what she makes. That's all she knows.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, but I would say that it's not as advanced yet around the country.
To circle back to your husband's belief in what you ingest can affect the sun exposure. I will back that 1,000% because going through chemo, and that's putting something in my body. I was so sensitive to the sun, like
Yeah.
fried, like immediately. So, yes, absolutely. what you put in your body affects how you process, your atmosphere.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but you were in that article. I feel like that's how this all got started. I saw that article and I sent about it's so hard to be healthy in America. I mean, it really
Mhm.
is. And that's why I sent John, our mutual friend. I was like, have Nicole watch these TikToks about seed oils. I was like, what else is she doing? What? He's like, there wasn't a lot of information that was shared. I was like, what else is she doing? What else is she doing? Because you want to know what other people, because I feel like it takes cancer, it takes autoimmune, it takes something like that for them to, kind of go down that path. And I'm very grateful that my husband, he's probably he wants me to be off Humira more than, it's more than I do. And so he is just down this, like, we're going to do whatever we can to, get you, off of this. And I don't have any side effects, and I really don't. I only take it like maybe once a month now, probably once a month. I used to be every 2 weeks. So huge improvement there. But it's just, it's impossible for us to be completely healthy when you're dining out. You're, it's like you just can't do it. We just went over a friend's house the other day for dinner. So you don't know, all right, we're having broccoli. What kind of broccoli am I having? Right. Wait,
Yeah.
we just had, she made potato, what kind of potato? So it's like, then you don't want to be the asshole and you're like, is this organic? Is this, is it, so it's impossible. So you can only just, care about what's in your home and what you're doing in a restaurant. And that's about it.
It's true. And for anybody like questioning and are not convinced about the organic, you should read about the Dirty Dozen. A lot of people don't even know that that exists. And like I bring it back to what I told my daughter, you're either eating something really healthy or you're actually poisoning yourself. And broccoli is on that list, obviously.
Oh yeah, the Dirty Dozen for sure. My husband is still about like the organic everything. And I'm
Yeah.
like, like we couldn't find organic avocados the other day and bananas. And I'm like, it still has like a bigger, cover. And he's like, but it's in the ground and it's in the ground. And he's like, so he's adamant that he still doesn't even want anything, even if it's not on the Dirty Dozen list. So, it's just, I get it. It's like it's being grown. And that's, it is what it is.
Yes, pre-diagnosis, I was the same. I was okay with some avocados and bananas that weren't, or and sometimes oranges, like because I was like the thick skin, But no, he's right, and now I'm just like, no, everything has to be organic. Otherwise, why eat it?
Right.
Grapes are like my kid eats grapes like crazy, so I keep them in the house. Sometimes they're really hard to find organic green grapes, and it's like, what is going on? So but
Well, with your daughter too, Nicole, I'm curious because like, there's the girls these days, and even my sons, they want the cologne. Like, oh my God, every time I'm in Sephora, it's like it's all teenage boys at the cologne side. They all want their colognes. And I'm like, that's an endocrine disruptor. Like, don't put that on your body. And if you do, just do it like if you go out with your friends one time, but they are dousing themselves in the Axe body spray. How do you work? How does your daughter understand? Because like makeup is so big for teenagers, and we put so many products on our skin. So how do you work with her to try to see like everything that she's putting on, because there's so many brands?
Well, it's the same concept, right? Some things like that I threw all of her products out. It was like these you have to say goodbye, but she's very much on board with companies that are clean. And I think that TikTok has a big part of that. Social media is good. It's good for certain things, and she's okay with it. She really is. She does have a perfume and it kills me. It drives me nuts. But she doesn't use it all the time and she knows to bring it down. But I introduced her to like essential oils that smell good. And
Right.
there are some that are really like from India. There's one that we use, and there's some great oils out there that are okay. But there are some products where I said, okay, you can use that one till it runs out, and then that's it. We're not repurchasing, because I promise you there's a brand out there that you're going to like, that's going to be clean. And lucky for us, there are companies that are catering to that and are on the drugstore level,
Right.
because she goes through products also like crazy. Like, she's expensive. And there's just a
It
lot
is
of companies.
expensive. I mean, just anything is expensive when you go to these stores.
There are. So it's great that a lot of companies are doing. Oh, sorry guys. Go. And it's a spam call. Go away. There are the companies that are like MCO, for example. So I went and bought the whole line when I saw it at Target. There's just some it's more available, so it's easier. It's really
Right.
not that hard with her, but she does
Yeah.
have a perfume, yes, and it drives me bananas. But you have to pick your battles, and you have to like she understands, so she doesn't use it as much. But like I said, I give her that 50 to 90%. I'm like, you if you can improve that much, like it's a huge difference. Think about half.
Right.
And it makes her want to strive for that 90, it really does because,
Yep.
it yeah, she doesn't want
Once
to
they
go through
see it. Yeah, my 15-year-old is, he's a ripe 15-year-old. And I'm always like, oh, buddy, I think you, need some deodorant. And, he uses the aluminum free, and he refuses to buy anything that is, has aluminum in it. So he's like, I'm not putting these, like, if I stink, I stink. I'll take a shower, but I'm not going to put that on my body. And so my younger one, he's the one who's like, I don't care. He wants the cool products that all the boys have. But my older one gets it. He's like, I don't care. I'd rather stink than, because like sometimes they just don't work as well as like, the other things. So yeah, but it's tough. Even with boys, there's a lot of products out there, and they really love their products. I mean, I don't feel like we were into products at that age, like, as they are now, but
I was.
yeah, you were like the colognes, or what did you like? The aftershave? Is it the hair products?
It was the cologne, that the hair products, it was whatever. I mean, if it meant that a girl was going to pay attention, I was in. It didn't matter.
I just
mean,
smelled Dave come in.
easily. I was disappointed that you can't find your car anywhere anymore.
Oh, that's
I'm just teasing on that one, but yeah, it was. I was just like your 12-year-old son. I was like, the cool kids are wearing it, I'm wearing it.
yeah.
That was kind of the move.
And it's really important to them too. They care about their
Oh, yeah.
smell. They care about, and and they want the $300 cologne. They don't want the crap, they want the expensive stuff. And it's crazy that when I'm like, oh, I'm going to Sephora, Ulta, and they're like, can I go? Like, okay, cool. Should we go get a manicure too? So it is crazy. Like, but there's a lot of boys that are in there too. And I think most moms or dads don't understand like that, fragrance is just the worst, right? And I just think that they don't get that. Nicole, have you ever tried the Bioma brand also at Target?
No.
It's a clean brand, and it's very affordable. I mean, you could buy the whole line, and it's very affordable. But that's one that I just discovered, and my son is using that now, and I'm using it. But I think
I'm writing that down right now.
Bioma.
Bioma.
Bioma. But yeah, very colorful brands, but very, very affordable.
Oh, wait, I may have. Okay, now that I saw it written down, possibly, but I'm definitely going to go recheck and do that.
Yeah, Bioma, that's what it's called, but very affordable, and shows up 100% on the Yucca app is clean.
Oh, I love that.
No, most of their products. There are some that are actually zero, but most of their products, so still scan them.
I love that. Yeah, it's like I said, it is available, but and boys, I think it's harder because girls, yeah, we can use all these clean products and stuff. Boys, it's becoming more options now, but it's all that crap, and it's they don't care if it's clean or not for the most part. They really don't. And the aluminum in that's not enough for me of the just aluminum free deodorant. And it was funny. My daughter came in yesterday, literally, and said, "I need more." Deodorant. Where did you put the deodorant? And I was like, oh, I put it all in your sister's suitcase before she left to go back to New York last time she was here. And she's like, well, then we have to reorder. What am I going to do till then? And luckily a company had just sent me something to try. And I was like, here, use this for now. And yeah, we'll reorder. But she very much is all okay with the natural because she's never used the store brand stuff. Like she's just never used that. So she doesn't get BO. People don't understand that when you use those deodorants that are full of the crap, you have to detox off them. Right. It takes like 7 weeks or something or more to get it out of your system. Right. And that's why we stink. If you never use that from the beginning, you don't get the same kind of BO. When she says she stinks, I'm like,
we're trying not to create, the traditional ones create a barrier, right? So it stays in your body. And that secretion is toxins coming out of your body. So you want it to come out. You just want to maybe, change the odor, but we want those things to come out of our body. We're not trying to, make a barrier so it's like stays in our body. So I think that's the thing that people don't understand. It's not that you don't want to sweat, you just don't want to smell.
Right.
You don't want to stink.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, like when she says she stinks, I'm just like, I don't smell it. She does not have that typical BO smell. And it's because she's never used those products to have to detox them out. So all the natural stuff works on her because
Oh, that's good. That's awesome.
yeah. Yeah. And teenagers stink.
They do.
They
do.
just
Come
do.
to my house.
No, yeah, I can't imagine boys. No amount of any of that stuff, good or bad, is gonna help. They just stink.
Nope. That's funny. It's so true.
They do. They have to just grow out of it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I give us your handles, your social handles, so people
So
can.
yeah, on TikTok, I'm Mountain Life Mom. So find me at Mountain Life Mom on TikTok.
Yes, I follow you. I started following you last night. I was stalking you, watching your videos, but it's such good information and delivered in such a easy way to understand and not boring and not preachy. So I appreciate that.
Try not to be preachy, but sometimes I'm a little preachy.
It doesn't come. No, it's you're easy to listen to. So.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, it was nice to meet you both. And Nicole, want to wish you just continued healing on your journey. And I'm just excited for you to, keep up the good fight.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Very much. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll stay in touch.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
It was cool. It's funny. There are a couple things mentioned in there, Nicole, that I laughed at because my running joke is when people always say, "Hey, if you retire, what are you going to do?" And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Costco once a week and get a sheet cake and eat that. And then I'll go back the next week. I'm not doing anything. I go, this Costco sheet cake is underrated. And people are like, what the hell's wrong with you? You're like, no one ever says anything that crazy. But when she's talked about the Costco sheet cake, it made me laugh because that's always been my line for 20 years that I'll be the guy buying Costco sheet cakes in my retirement. I will not be doing that. That's tongue in cheek. The one thing I will do, like I'll go to the grocery store and there's stuff I won't buy anymore, but I tempt myself. Like I'll walk down the bad aisles to, as my doctor says, all the good stuff that you want to put in your body is on the outside. Anytime you got to go in between the aisles, that's the bad stuff. Don't go in between the aisles. But I'll walk down the cookie aisle. And when I was a kid, if you could find Malamars, my dad would buy them. Do you remember Malamars, the cookie?
I don't. I know that name. I just don't know
so
what they are.
It's a marshmallow graham cracker cookie covered in chocolate.
Okay.
And they aren't always in season, especially during the summertime because
this isn't something that grows.
No, it's a season because they go back, they'll melt. And so they only sell them when the weather's cooler. They won't sell them in the summertime ever. You won't ever see them in a store. And so in Los Angeles, this is the way it was when we were kids. I know because my dad was a Malamar junkie. And so he would hide them like in his office. And so it was the Malamar season because the truck drivers, they'd melt in their trucks before they could get them into the stores.
Oh my gosh.
And so I walk down that goddamn cookie aisle and I look for those Malamars. And I always say to myself, if they're there, I'm buying them. And I haven't seen them in years, but you can find them online and this and that. And that was funny. It's actually one of the things, before my dad passed, my sister went and got him Malamars and he was fighting depression and he had cancer and he wasn't doing well. And my sister says, I knew he wasn't doing well when he didn't eat the Malamars. That was the test, the mental test of where he was at in his mind. But yeah, there's junk food everywhere. And for me as a kid, you eat it, you run to 7-Eleven, you grab whatever stuff you put in your body. But, as you get older, you're you start to feel it if you put bad stuff in your body. I mean, right away, you feel it within 20 minutes of, man, I have no energy. I feel weak. I just, don't feel the same. When you're a kid, you can kind of get away with it. But you're right. If you're training yourself at a young age, like you're doing with your daughter, it just becomes a way of life and just the way life's going to be from this point on.
Yeah. And it's interesting because she takes after my mother where she has a sweet tooth. So she'll come home and say, Mom, I ate so much sugar today. I feel like I've eaten so much sugar. I need to like detox for the next couple of days. And she'll see it in her skin.
Yeah.
And she feels the repercussions of it. So it's like, I don't have to say anything. She'll come home feeling guilty and feeling like crap and know it. Because a lot of times I think people don't put the correlation together.
Yeah.
Right? They don't, oh, I just broke out. My skin just broke out. And maybe it's that time of the month or something, but she's putting it together. Like, I ate this sugar. Look at my skin, my body odor, things like that. She's putting it together herself. But like you said, as adults, we start to feel it. But a lot of times people still aren't putting it together. They're not putting
Yeah.
that puzzle together that it's what they just ate. Now they're crashing. Now they're, their body
Right.
is working overtime to try to deal with that crap you just put in your body. That's why fasting is just so healthy, because you let your body start to work on itself. It's not dealing with all the crap you just put in it. It can focus on regenerating itself. And that's why I only eat once a day, 3 or 4 o'clock, and that's it. And that's my
Wow.
one meal. And I, besides green juices and things like that, I really don't eat anything else. And it's become easy. It's like I'm not hungry all day. And after I've eaten that, I'm not hungry and I can go to sleep. They say don't go to sleep on an empty stomach. You absolutely want to go to sleep on an empty stomach so that your body can sleep and rejuvenate and heal itself, and all those things. So it's just, I love it when you see like-minded people like Deanna, and she teaching her kids, and it's just, we just need more of this.
Yeah, and again, as I asked the question, I wonder if this is more of a West Coast thing, or is this where the rest of the country is starting to figure it out?
Well, I think with social media, like we want to talk about the positives of social media. I think that that's one of them. It's that you can go down that rabbit hole, and the popular things are, healthier now and clean, quote unquote clean. So it's interesting, but yay to social media for that.
That was fun. That was a good time.
Yeah. Yes. So have a good week, and we will see you next week. Everybody enjoy your time.